So today is December 7th. It's Friday. We're here in San Francisco at the KIQI radio station. We are with Don Marcos Gutierrez. And we are going to conduct an interview about his history and work in the Bay Area. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Marcos Gutierrez, and we're going to find out about my history in the Bay Area.
Okay, tell us why and how you came to be a broadcaster/producer in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area in particular. Okay, so I was born in Juarez, Mexico, and I came here when I was 13, sin saber inglés. And then I bought myself a little cassette player because I wanted to learn how to pronounce the words. And so I went around to my gringo friends, and I said, or the people that I knew, and I asked them how to pronounce words. And so I was very familiar with my voice, the sound of my voice. And so I ended up, by the time I finished high school, I went and started college. And then this, we're talking in 1966, can you imagine that? And I was sitting at the union, what do they call it, student union hall, whatever.
Where did you go to school, sir?
It was Texas Western then.
Oh, okay.
It's now the University of Texas at El Paso, Texas Western at that time. And I was sitting there at the union room, and we had a radio station, and it was piped into one of the place there, and I was listening to the radio. And this lady was conducting an interview. And I'm listening to it, and I'm saying, as I said before, I knew I was familiar with my voice. And so I said, I can do that. And so I took some broadcasting classes. And then I got a job as a DJ in El Paso. 1970, I came to San Francisco when the stuff was hitting the ground, in the sense that the Brown Berets, we had riots in the United States. The hippie movement, the love movement had happened. I came here a little bit late for that. And what had happened because of the riots in the United States by mostly African descendants was that obviously there was a lot of destruction in a lot of cities because they were upset. And the United States government commissioned a study as to why the blacks had arisen in that manner. And one of the reasons they found was that the media was not covering their issues, was not covering the lives that they were suffering, all the suffering that they were going through. All the white folks were all enjoying the stuff, and the black communities were real down, and the Latino communities also. And so, in answer to your question, I come in with some experience. In the Mission District, there had been a movement to knock on the door of the television station saying, hey, where's our faces? Because as I said before, the commission, I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but the commission had been asked to find out why the blacks were not happy. And what they had found out is that they were not covering. As a consequence, the government obligated the media to ascertain the community, that is, go into the community and find out what the problems were, and then do programming that address those issues. And so, because of the movements throughout the United States, and especially here in the Mission, knocking at the door of KRON, the Chronicle and KRON were one entity at one point, and they may still be. As a result of that, they decided to do a show. So they started looking for somebody that had some broadcasting. Obviously, no Latinos were there with broadcasting experience, because before that it was all white folks. Except for one person, maybe Belva Davis was on the air at that time as a black person. Anyway, they found out that I had some experience. They had auditions. We auditioned, and I came up with the job. And the job was to start a program that would reflect the Latino community in the English language media, which was KRON. So we did a show. So that's how I got into broadcasting here. But over there, I had already had a job. So the program was Latino-oriented. It was bilingual, Spanish and English, los dos idiomas. And since at that particular time there was also a cultural, artistic movement here in the Mission also, it was easy pickings for me because everybody was, it was a conglomerate of of people that had pushed for that show. Everybody was aware of it, so they were all feeding into it, information. And the show was about that, which is what I still do. That is issues of the day and entertainment. I hope that was short enough.
Can you mention what kind of work specifically did you else you do in the work that you did, if that makes sense?
Well, my job was to produce the program, and that is to make sure that I knew all of the organizations that were available, and then going out there and finding out what their needs were, what they wanted to interview about, what they wanted to talk about on the air, and also on the cultural side, bring in dancers and just to help with. And at that time, the Mission Cultural Center, Galería de la Raza, El Tecolote, and other Horizons Unlimited, and other organizations were spruing up. So it was, like I said, easy to get them on the show and put them on the
air. What are your strengths as a broadcaster / producer?
Strengths as a producer and a broadcaster. Well, you really have to know how to get a taste for what people will listen to without getting too mau.
Mm-hmm.
And you really you need to like people, and you really need to have a desire to somehow better the situation that is now. In other words, that it seems to me that's one of the most important requirements in being a broadcaster, the kind of broadcasting that I do. You really have to have a passion for finding some of the issues that are important to our community and trying to address them, or at least put them on the air, bring them to conscience. So if you were to say what is the most necessary strength that a person, you have to really have, be in touch with folks. You have to really listen to people, see what they're clamoring about, if you will, if I may use that word.
Do you think your work as a broadcaster affects the ones that are listening to you, or what kind of effect do you think you're having on them?
Well,
specifically in the Bay Area, since that's where you work.
I think so. I mean, people have a tendency to compliment other people a lot, and so I usually try to stay away from people complimenting me, because I can't afford to get a big head or to start thinking that I'm anything but a worker. But there has been several, issues that have come to us as broadcasters where we have found solutions. I mean, I know that, for instance, the Alex Nieto situation could be an example. Obviously, Alex Nieto, who was a kid that was killed in Vernal Heights, his father and his mother have had a lot of help from everybody. But we have been, we have kept it alive. We pressured Hillary Ronan to come up with $25,000 for the memorial that is to be built over there. We kept up with the suffering that the family went through when they tried to sue the city of San Francisco, and they really, really tortured them. In the district attorney in the police department had a right to find out a lot of information about them because it was an open case, and so they really tortured them with questions that were so unnecessary. But anyway, we try to bring that up to the conscious. Now with the Caravana, with the Exodus, we've done a lot of coverage of that because there's a lot of people that want to do something and they don't know what to do. And so we search out the organizations that are helping the Caravana, like Carecen, Al Otro Lado, Pueblos Sin Fronteras, and we bring them to the folks and say, look, this is how you can help. During the separation of the kids, there was large marches everywhere, and we just stay on top of the situation. And the only way that I can tell whether we have an effect is when people call back and tell us this and this, thank you very much, because of this and this I did this. So I think that we're hoping to have an effect. Now with this gentrification situation, Roberto Hernandez is somebody that comes on the program on a constant basis, and so we try to tell folks which are the buildings, like for instance the building on 22nd Street that burned down, 22nd and Mission. they didn't allow the ex-tenants to. They're looking like they're not going to get the ex-tenants to be able to come back at rates that are acceptable and affordable. So we try to get involved in that fashion.
What do you say you accomplished during the 1960s in the Bay Area?
The only thing that I can say about that is the same thing that I'm saying right now, because that's always the feeling that I've had. There was no programming in television before, Latino-oriented programming before we did Alma de Bronce. By the way, that was the name of the show. The first show, we had two. Alma de Bronce on Channel 4, KRON. I think that there's some articles in the Tecolote about it back then. And then I went to another show which is called Sol es Vida. Sol es Vida. And it was the same concept, but it was on Channel 5. And there's also a lot of documentation on that. And so what we try to do is to try to keep people con el dedo en la llaga. We try to, bring a large group of people to understand what's going on. And if there's some action to be made, then direct folks to go to that action. That's what I think that we were doing at that time, because there was nothing else before that. So, we feel that we were part of the movement. Not the movement, but part of the movement.
Why do you think you were not? You were just a part of the movement.
Well, because a movement is more organic. We can't be. I mean, what we do that's different than other broadcasters is that we buy our own time here at the station. In fact, that's our motto. Más que un programa radial, un movimiento. But I don't go out and organize. That I can't do that. I know my place and I know I know what I got to do, because I would go crazy. I don't want to burn myself to the ground, and trying to do everything that a person can do. So I know my place is to document and to talk about what is actually organic, a movement. So we're not the movement, but we follow it, we report on it, and we try to encourage it and get other people involved in it. But we're not the moving, not the initial. We couldn't afford that. Now, on the other hand, we do have an economic side to it, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we buy the time from here, and I have to go out and hustle it. In fact, I have an appointment at 2:00. Just a joke. Just a joke. But I do have. I have to go hustling and go find sponsors. I mean, you know what sponsors it. So basically, we're dishing out about $40,000 to the station on a monthly basis, and so we have to come up with maybe $55,000 or $60,000 for us to continue, doing this on a monthly basis. And so, in that sense, we're also working economically, because there's a lot of businesses that depend on us, or at least depend on our help for them to continue. They're all Latino based businesses. We don't do like McDonald's, and we try to stay away from corporations, because then they start telling us what we're supposed to say, and that's not acceptable. In fact, while we're at that topic, I was already retired. I was teaching at City College part-time, and at San Francisco State part-time, because I had gotten rid of I could use the word tired of the broadcasting, because in broadcasting there's usually, after the pendulum swung after the government forced the stations to ascertain and produce programming for the people. The pendulum went the other way. The ultra-conservatives, through Ronald Reagan, went the other way. And then they actually started selling all of the radio stations and the television stations to whoever had the most money, which was really harmful to the society, because now the society wasn't really reflecting the needs of the community. And so right now, I mean, we do independent programming, and what we do is community-based. Whereas Univision or Telemundo, they do some good programming a lot of times, but it's mostly owned by non-Latinos. And I don't know if I mentioned this, and I guess I should. after came back over here and I already had a broadcasting career, I went back and finished my BA at San Francisco State and my master's at San Francisco State, and then I went to get a doctoral degree at USF. The theme, my main topic, my thesis was in broadcasting. And my conclusion was that unless we do our own programming, nobody's going to be doing it for us. Univision, I mean, as long as we don't own or at least have control of what we're putting out as a medium, whether it's whatever it is, nobody's going to do us any favor and try to really tell our story as it is. I don't know if I went off track too much, but anyway, I know you're going to bring me back now.
Okay.
Coming to the conclusion.
What did you do or say during your program in 1960s
About
the whole movement that was going on during the
holy guacamole? Well, the thing about that, and since you asked the question, as you remember, the first programming, the programming that came about as a definite ascertainment of the community, and that was supposed to reflect what the needs of the community were. As a result of that, we were able to bring programming that had never been seen. And so, what did I say then? Well, that's basically what we said. We said, this is community based, and you're not gonna censor us. And so, as a consequence, like los siete de la misión, which were some kids that killed a cop, they would have never had any airtime. Cesar Chavez would have not had as much airtime. I mean, I'm not saying that we gave him all that much time, but that's what I'm talking about. A lot of issues that had never been handled in a positive way from the Latino we were able to do that because it was community mandated, and the stations had to go, okay, well, just let them talk. And I was radical enough. I was around 22 years old. And so I was radical enough to just bring all kinds of stuff. I even had an afro.
What do you mean by radical? What radical stuff did you bring in?
Well, I mean, the Brown Berets were on a lot of times. And the acid people, were taking the drugs. And there's a lot of people that came in talking about revolution. We covered the Olga Talamante case a lot. Olga Talamante is the Chicana that had some radical books with her when she went to Argentina during the dark period in Argentina when the dictatorship was on. She was arrested and tortured. And so, that's what I mean by that. We covered radical issues that were not covered otherwise.
Why do you think that it's important for these kinds of radical topics to be, or do you think that it's important for these kinds of topics to be brought into the media like this?
So, well, even now, like we have a dilemma in various parts. I mean, a lot of people would like for us to give the Exodus totally negative paintbrush, but we refuse to do that because there's a lot of things that are happening. It's a lot deeper than just what Fox, for instance, Fox as a network will cover. I mean, anything that Fox says about that is really negative and is pro-Trump, and there's got to be another side. As far as within the Latino community, I've been criticized for putting people from Nicaragua on both sides. I mean, Ortega is turning into a dictator or has turned into a dictator, and there's some people that are actually backing him up. Most of the people that call are against Mr. Ortega, but I'm not going to deny time if people that are pro Ortega come to me and say, we want to also have our side. So that's the radical side. That's why it's important.
Looking back at your days as a broadcaster and producer, is there anything you would have done differently during the 1960s?
I would have done
different.
That I would have done different?
Yes.
Wow. Gee, can I say no? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can say no.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I don't know what, like Cesar Chavez, one of the things that he didn't do, that he said that he wished that he had, was buying property and encouraging the farm workers to buy homes or encouraging the Latino community in general. You know, he was kind of sad about that. That's one thing that he didn't want to do. And me personally, I don't know if I could have handled the corporate style, but I think that I may have wanted to have been more involved with broadcasting entities ownership. So it's the same thing basically that Cesar is sorry about. They're not having done enough to push for media ownership by Latinos. But other than that, I can't afford to be second guessing my life, because then that brings me into a negative space, and when you, at least for me, I need to keep myself on a positive frequency at all times, because I do have a lot of work to do, and I need a lot of focus to get it done. So I can't, divert. No, I can't afford to be spending time on negatives.
Right. So how has the Bay Area, more specifically San Francisco, how has it changed? Since the work that you have been doing has begun.
Well, I mean, very radically, but I haven't. I wouldn't say that I've changed. That I've changed anything. I mean, but it's been a radical change. Mostly, especially within addressing the Latino community, we're having, great difficulties with gentrification and the possibility that one of the things that I'm still concerned about is the fact that there's certain large amounts of money that are being loaned only to non-Latinos and non-blacks, and every time that I've asked that of people that are experts on the topic, I ask them specifically, do you think that there is a plan, I'm looking for a word that I can't come up with. Conspiracy. Do you think that there's a conspiracy where this particular amount of money is only being loaned to gabachos or europeos or non-Latinos? In the Bay Area, for instance, in Oakland, in San Francisco, so they can buy their homes. Whereas, because we all know that there's discrimination against Latinos and blacks when it comes to money lending. And the only answer that I have gotten is the effect is there, but is there a conspiracy? Is there an actual plan? Nobody knows. But the effect is there. Mm-hmm. In other words, non-Latinos are buying a lot of property, and non-Latinos and non-blacks are getting a lot of loans that perhaps should be going to Latinos and blacks. So I hope I addressed that issue. But that's one of the biggest things that has happened. The fact that obviously the technological revolution has changed the whole scene.
Definitely.
What advice would you give young people today who see themselves or want to see themselves as a community or a broadcaster producer?
I think that it's very difficult. Well, I think it's very difficult to just do it for the sake of money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You really have to have a calling. Really have to, it depends on what kind of, because if you want to do a fun producing that, you want to do a show or whatever, that's just fun and for the sake of entertainment, that's totally different. The stuff that I do is more serious. It's serious. It's life serious. Mm-hmm. And so in order to do this kind of work, you really have to say, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to be part of the agenda setting? Because that's what broadcasting is about, agenda setting. Who sets the agenda? Who decides what do we talk about today? So let's say that I have 70,000 people that are listening to us, and there may be some topics that sometimes I miss. And my job is to make sure that I bring the topics to the floor that hopefully will help the community. So you need to do it for other than money. You need to, and you need to like people, and you need to actually have hope that things can change by your working your ass off, because it is a lot of work.